Tuesday and it's miserable and wet again. Now, the weather is having a massive impact on our projects and we are really struggling to get out the ground. Literally. So you may ask, why do we start projects like extensions where there is groundwork in the winter? And in perfect answer to that is there's never a great time to start an extension, whether it be raining or cold in the winter or extreme heat in the summer. What we are finding is that clients predominantly want to embark on extensions during the summer. So they're spending time in the garden, they're spending time in the kitchen, they're entertaining people, and they're looking at their spaces and going, this doesn't work for us. Should we have an extension? So they invite us around generally, June, July, August, and they think of embarking on this extension. By the time we actually walk them through that process, have the plans drawn up, send them to the planning for prior approval or planning permission or permitted development, we are then embarking on them projects generally in the winter. But the benefit of that is that they are then having their extension ready for the summer so that they can then enjoy it. So they go through, generally all this pain in the winter, when it's gloomy and there's rain and it's cold, and then their process comes along, and just as we're entering into summer, so May, June, they then have these fantastic kitchen dining spaces that walk onto the garden and they can fully enjoy it. So that all that pain they've endured for the last couple of months basically isn't there anymore. So we also have the same problem in the summer, because in the summer the kids would like to go into the gardens, especially in the summer holidays. If you're there building an extension, and you're sectioning off spaces and not letting them work. We also have down days with guys where it's so hot that they can't physically work. So, weather is currently not on our side in the winter or the summer. So it's a real fine balance to try and get that at the right medium. I personally think that winter extensions are the best. Maybe not for our business, but I generally think that it's a good time to do it because it kind of gets it out of the way before the summer. So we are having a lot of impact on our projects at the moment. If I go back to last January, we wasn't having as much rain as what we're currently having now. But whether or not that's going to change going forward into February and March, we're not sure. But we can only keep plodding on and keep trying to get the projects over the line within the timescales that we've allowed. It is very frustrating for us because we have to move guys around, and it's not necessarily the most productive thing to do or cost effective thing to do. And it's also very painful for the guys because in some cases they generally can't work. So whilst it is very negative when the weather's like this, there are also positives to having the extension at this time. So we are just back at the Leatherhead project and about to give out these lovely crane cards because we have a crane coming tomorrow. So this is just a polite notice to let the clients know that a crane will be here tomorrow, and apologising for any inconvenience. Nice little touch that we give to nice neighbours in a nice area so that everyone knows what we are up to. Especially with the school runs, it can become quite difficult to park with lorries coming in, so we like to give them as much notice as possible. Just finished handing out the crane cards in Leatherhead, ready for tomorrow's crane. Now we are on the way to a meeting with the Surrey Lofts sales team to discuss how the last couple of days have gone, whether or not anything needs any tweaks, if they need any more support from myself. In general, Surrey Lofts do predominantly most of the loft conversion quotes, but I do the extension side. So it may be that someone wants to have a loft and an extension. So within that, the sales team would produce the loft conversion quote, but then I will have a task to do an extension quote. So it may be that I'm well behind and got loads of quotes, but I generally want to just see where we're at and make sure that we're keeping on top of sales. It's also a meeting where we can discuss our downfalls and anything that's been positive. I'm a fair believer in challenging people's downfalls and praising them when they've been good. So hopefully we can praise some things and we can look at some things that might need addressing and come up with ways together how we can make them better. Now, I've probably got a couple of downfalls that we'll discuss today, and hopefully we've got some good constructive criticism so that we can stay on top of them and make sure that we're still performing our best. So all being well, I will try and bring you some footage of our meeting, but really looking forward to a nice caramel latte. So just finished the meeting with the girls from Surrey Loft's sales team, and we've kind of highlighted a few issues within our process. So, you know, that ultimately highlights how important these meetings are with team members to establish where we're going wrong, what we need to do better, what changes we can make. And I think it's very important within any business is never be afraid to make changes. You know, especially as different economies and the way the world is constantly changing, especially with the new integration tools with AI and different products out there. I think it's always important to look at any process within a business and never be afraid of change, because that change can technically make or break a business. So I think it's very important to look at everything you're doing, and these meetings generally help us establish what's good and what's not working. So very productive. We've gone through lots of different things and how we want to change bits and how the girls need different things from me. And I think what's quite important from today's meeting is not only some of the changes that we need to make, but also one or two changes that I personally need to make. Not maybe micromanaging is the wrong word, but I have a really big problem with being a control freak, and I want everything to be perfect. I want everything to be in place. I want every client to feel special. I want every client to be contacted when I expect them to be contacted. I don't necessarily want things drifting. And, ultimately I've got two really good women that can do that job. And, I need to let them do their job, because sometimes with me interfering, it only makes it worse. So, that's one thing that's come out of the meeting, that I need to kind of step back a little bit and let them do their job and then trust in the process. So, look, I'll always take things on board where I need to take things on board. And I think, it's one thing that I'll try and step back a little bit and let the girls focus on the sales and sales. And, when we have these weekly meetings, we can pick up and make sure that, it is better. It has worked, and slowly start changing things where we need to. So on project wise today, the two extension projects that we're currently running, they are ground floor extensions, and they haven't unfortunately been able to be very productive today. Actually, both rained off, which is disappointing, but just the weather, can't really help it. Then we've got 3 or 4 loft conversions on. One's coming to the end. Sussex loft project's coming to the end. So we've got 3 Surrey loft projects on going, and they are in full swing. We've got stills arriving to a job tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you some footage of that. But other than that, all good in the hood. So I'm signing out on Tuesday. Good morning, Wednesday. We are back at the Leatherhead project and the steels have arrived. So we've just been talking about the project and what the guys are building here. So if I just show you, in the plans, we are building this new floor plan here, which shows new bedroom, bathroom, dressing area and a storeroom. Now we might actually knock the store into the dressing room, so we've given the client a few options prior to those walls being built, and we've actually got a new vaulted section here that's going to be a vaulted landing. We're actually in a conservation area and we are installing 7 conservation windows, 4 to the front and 3 to the rear. But other than that, the roof is actually remaining the same. So yeah, all being well, the steels are about to go up. And the guys have just opened up a hole ready for the steels to enter the loft. So we've just left the team installing the steels at the Leatherhead project. Now that crane we have on hire for 2 hours. So that should be enough time for the guys to adequately get the steels up and through the hole into the loft conversion. And then they'll start probably for the rest of the day moving them about and putting them in the places that they are needed. Generally the steel structure on the floor comes together within a day and a half, and then they'll start installing the timber floor joists. So we will probably pop back in there some point this week and just show you what the timber joist structure looks like and how that is formed. But for now we are on our way to the Hurst project. I've just got off the phone to Marius and he's just explained how the job is, made sure that everything's okay on that job and there's been no problems after the recent weather. They are installing the drainage today and carrying on with the block work up to DPC. So when we get there they should have made some progress and I will be able to show you that. So yeah, drier day today and hoping that it continues for the rest of the day. Back at Hurst project and the scaffolders have just left after me having a brief meeting with them regarding what is needed in terms of access for the loft conversion. So they've made a start on the front and the side and we'll be back tomorrow to complete some of the other sections that we've now discussed in more detail. Because some of the project is double story and generally within this section here is double story, we don't want to put any legs inside this floor area or any platforms here because it's just going to be needed to be removed at a later date. So we're going to do some mobile trestles here to try and get this up to head height, and they're going to beam some sections around the extension just to make it easier in terms of us actually working below it while we try and start the loft conversion too. We've then got all the damp course blocks ready and in position, ready for the damp course to go on top of this section. So here is actually quite a high damp course. So we've got 4 blocks high. They're 100mm thick concrete blocks with 100mm cavity, which we're going to use the interlocking boards in. So the guys have been busy today just building this up. They'll be returning it at either end probably later today. We need a lintel actually there over that drainage section, so we have to cut a hole in that brickwork to allow that lintel to go through so that we're not putting any additional weight on the drainage sections. They've started removing that drainage and prepping it. I suspect by the end of the week the drainage will all be in predominantly for this project. We've also then got to start leveling out the floor, getting the oversight ready. We have a manhole there that needs to be removed. The pipe will be blocked off, so we won't need to keep that manhole at all, and we don't have the risk of any drainage smells in the extension. We've then got the air bricks to come through, so I suspect there'll probably be 6 or 7 across the back section, bearing in mind where steps are going to be, so they're not going to be blocked. And then we're probably going to start on the second story section and try and take this bit up as far as we can, so that then this section is squared off and ready for the loft conversion. So by the time that the scaffold's finished at the end of the week and the loft conversion starts next week, or at least the stripping of the roof will happen next week, we will then be in a position where we can then remodel the roof, and this section becomes part of the loft conversion. So we can then move on to that with the steels being delivered and the timber framework being done. So lots to do. Hopefully the weather holds out for the rest of the week. We've actually got also a weird detail here, which we have a slight design amendment on, because this is actually closer to the boundary wall than what we initially thought. So with this kind of outlay at the moment, it doesn't allow for access in the garden. So we're actually now deciding that we're going to put a slight angle on it and make a 650 wide gap to allow the client to access the garden from what's going to be a dog stroke utility section. So that's that. Garage is kind of unchanged since last time we showed you. We've still got this small detail of removing the steel on the front section, but we thought we'd get the scaffold in place first, and then we're going to set the acros back up of now the foundation that's been poured, to allow a little bit more flexibility in where those acros go, to try and make it easier to remove that. So that will probably happen next week. The boiler and megaflow are now actually confirmed to be moving and relocating to this section here, which will be garage, storeroom, stroke, half utility. So they're going to be placed boiler on the wall and then the tank next to it. So we'll probably be starting them in the coming weeks too. But other than that, all good and happy with the progress. So we're on the way home on Wednesday afternoon, and I am feeling pretty shattered. I've been running around on various projects trying to make sure that everything is running smoothly, and I've also been out on some follow-up visits with some potential clients that the sales team at Surrey Loft has booked in. So I did, I think, 3 meetings today with follow-up proposals, and they all went well as can go, and we'll probably hopefully win some of those projects. But an interesting conversation I had with one of those potential clients was, you know, we see you around all the time, you've got banners on various different projects and you're working in our area, but just a question, why don't you have any branded vans? And I actually was taken back by it, because it's not a question that we often get asked by clients. You know, clients see banners and they see the website and they see, you know, various different advertising schemes that we run, but very rarely does anyone pick up on the vans. It used to be, you know, an old Pimlico plumbing sales ploy. You know, you'd have beautiful vans, beautiful number plates, all liveried up in your lovely branding, which in other businesses in the past I've had, and we've kind of had, at one time we had a fleet of, I think, 20 vehicles, and you know, it's not something we've ever implemented into the business that we've taken over with Surrey Lofts. And the reason being is, if you've ever run a fleet of vehicles, you'll know the stress, the pressure, the costs, and all the issues that arise from running a fleet of vehicles. And I generally, when I look at the costs of what we used to spend on our fleet, you know, with insurance, the maintenance, delivery of them, you know, someone taking care of those vehicles to make sure that they're all looking as best as they can. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands, not just thousands, hundreds of thousands. And ultimately, where does that cost come from? So that cost generally is added to a project. So if we're looking at a project and, we're saying that, we're running a fleet of vans, we have to add a higher margin onto those projects to make sure that we're covering the costs of that fleet of vans. So I generally think that sometimes it can actually market you out of the marketplace and potentially make you a bit more expensive because you've got liveried vans. Now, they are a brilliant advertising tool, up and down the roads if you're traveling around, as long as they're being driven in the correct manner, which again is hard to police. We also used to have a lot of problems where we used to do multiple projects down a road, and sometimes they're tight roads in London, and we would get neighbours complaining that three of our vans are taking up space down their road. Now, we can't do anything about that. We're working in the road. There's a permit on the vehicle, so legally allowed to park there. But that is a negativity of having liveried vans, because they could be parking everywhere down the road and neighbours can get annoyed with it. So generally, if they're not liveried, they don't necessarily know that they're even at your project, or whether they're a courier as such. So I actually think the negatives are substantially worse than the positives that they bring to your business. And I think what makes us more competitive in our marketplace is that we can actually reduce our costs. So, we have the timber merchant, we don't have a fleet of vans, our overheads are much more in line with where we are as a business. And one, it makes our profit margin higher. And secondly, we don't need to charge as much, which technically means that we are more competitive, we win more work, and we can cover a bigger area in terms of the services we offer. So it was an interesting question, but one that I, answered very similar to the way that I've just explained our process and why we work that way to you guys. And I think, costs for companies and overheads are very important. And I look at overheads all the time, as I want to be competitive in the marketplace and basically control the amount of work that we take off our competition. Especially with loft conversions in and around Surrey and London, you have to be very competitive. It's definitely a market that's swamped with competition. You have to be a little bit different. I feel we're a little bit different, and we definitely win more work because we're competitive. So yeah, all in all, Wednesday's gone really well. Again, very tired, but hopefully I can get my head down tonight. Tomorrow we are in the office, so hopefully more of a catch-up day on some of the paperwork from the visits today and some proposals. So yeah, I will see you tomorrow. So Sarah, when you are embarking on a project kickstart with a client, how realistic do you think that their objectives are?
Now that's a good one. This is probably the biggest hurdle to overcome. People have a misconception about how much things are going to cost to build. And I would say there's probably quite a split down the middle of the number of people whose cost expectations aren't very realistic. The building industry has had quite a few knocks over the years. I think starting with COVID, during that period, timber alone, the cost increased by 30% or thereabouts. And then obviously we had Brexit, where we lost a huge amount of labour. So all of these kind of factors affect the build. Then you've got the cost of living. Generally, everything is expensive now. I think we're all feeling the squeeze. And potentially 10 years ago, you could get a loft conversion for 40 grand. A lot of people haven't moved on from that, and expect the cost still to be around there or abouts.
And what would you say that, where is most of the funding coming from projects?
Yeah, again, that's another thing that has a bit of an impact on it. We do see the people who have got, vast savings or have had some recent inheritance, but the majority of the funding for our projects comes from clients who are remortgaging, releasing equity from their property. And as of late, interest rates haven't been great, so that's certainly been a stumbling block that we've seen across the board.
Yeah, and then so the cost of a loft, does that significantly add value to a property?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we live in a very affluent area in Surrey. So I think the value of properties is really good. So they're definitely going to get a return on just adding, a master suite in their attic space.
Would you say that a master suite is then probably one of the most popular conversions that we do?
Yeah, I would, and I think for sellability, when you go and look at a property and you've got this lovely, spacious, luxurious master suite at the top of the house, I definitely think that is a selling point.
What's your favourite thing about a master suite?
I think it's a sanctuary or an oasis, where it can be adult only. Most of our clients are clients with children living chaotic lives, and it's really nice to have that little space at the top of the house that they can shut themselves away in, and be child free, and also because it's quite a luxurious space. Not many houses have bedrooms with dressing rooms, but with the loft, you've got that possibility, and it just kind of, it makes it feel a bit like you're walking into a hotel suite sometimes.
So do you prefer a bath or a shower in them?
I think the majority of our lofts have shower rooms because obviously they're the most cost effective, and also in terms of space saving. But if you have got the space to have a nice freestanding bath under the eaves, with a Velux window above, I think that's a really nice touch. Yeah, and I think that's what I'd go with. I'd like to have a dressing room that I walk through into a nice spacious bathroom.
I do like the jobs that look like that. They are good ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice walk-in dressing room.
Yeah,
freestanding bath.
They've got an element of grandeur to them.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them properties are much wider, we find, rather than your bog standard semi-detached house.
Yeah.
But they are very, very nice projects.
Yes. So we are now on our way home. We've had a very positive visit down in Gosport, with a very nice gentleman. Just moved into a stunning period house from Brighton, and has lots of exciting plans that we talked through. We shared some ideas, bounced some ideas off one another. So what we'll be doing on Monday is getting back to him with an email with a few scenarios of options he's got with the associated costs. Obviously, it's a large house, so the budget can get swallowed up very quickly. So we're going to give him a few options, as he needs to prioritise what items of work are the most important. Got back into the car. We had a really good phone call actually with the client that we saw this week for a follow-up. I think we've managed to get that one over the line, so hoping that we will get a proposal signed, and another job in the bag, which is always good, nice high to end the week on. So I hope you've enjoyed our being with us this week, and I hope you've got some nice things planned for the weekend. Do you want to hear more from the team at the Surrey Build Group, Surrey Lofts? If you do, please like and subscribe.
Bye.